Recognize that tune, and you know it's time for Relics Radio. This is a family-friendly show, so the entire family can join us as we talk metal detecting and relic hunting. You can call into the show at 270-495-0315 or join in the chat and post any comments or questions you might have, and we'll get to as many of them as we can. You're listening to Relics Radio of Southern Kentucky and Middle Tennessee. All right, you are live. Well, you're live if you're listening on June the 7th at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. Relics Radio back on the air tonight from the foothills of the Cumberland Mountains along the Cumberland River in Southern Kentucky. I am your host, Digging with Seven, and I'll be running solo tonight because Tennessee Jeff is on vacation. He thought that he would be back in time for the show, but you know, things don't always work out the way we want them to. So I will be running solo and doing some of the things that Jeff normally pays attention to all the chat. I don't because I've got so many controls and everything to work here. But Ken Guthrie's in, Ohio Relic Hunter, Jeff Miller, Mike Speiser's in the house. And let's see, Jim Bonita's in. And I'm going down the list. Larry Stevens, Woody Jones, Dave Miller, Bill Hayes. And looks like that's all that's in right now, but you guys have already got off to a good start. And we appreciate you being in. And as always, we appreciate our international listeners that normally listen to the archive, but we want you to know that we appreciate you guys as well. And Ken Guthrie said I need to dock Tennessee Jeff's pay. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to dock his pay. But I've got a great guest in here tonight, Mike Speiser. Mike, are you there?
I am here.
Good deal. I've been so looking forward to this show and to get to know you and to get to talk to you. You and I have talked maybe a couple of times, talked to you the other day on the phone. Whenever I just sent you a message on Facebook whenever we attempted to book this show, and you weren't available at the time, and then you got back to me and said that you were, and I got excited over that. I really have been looking forward to having you on the show tonight, and I know our listeners are going to get a treat here tonight. But to start with, whenever I talked to you the other day, you were just coming out of the chiropractor's office. Is that correct?
Oh, yes, yesterday, yes. I needed adjusted.
Needed an adjustment. Well, did they get you adjusted?
They did a fine job. For the first time in several months, my left arm did not go numb while I was sleeping, so that was a plus. Plus, I was able to sleep.
Yeah, that's always a plus. My wife has a back problem, and that runs down into her leg. Evidently, has got a pinched nerve, and they've looked, and they don't think that they could do surgery and correct that. They're afraid actually that they might do more damage. But some nights she has an incredible hard time of getting to sleep. She said it's just like something's crawling in her leg, you know. And her toes will go to sleep. And so glad you got all that fixed out. Is that a metal detecting injury or something?
No. It's just probably because I worked too hard. I know a couple of listeners probably going to laugh at that, but I worked too hard there. We'll just go with that.
That works for me, I tell you. I tell you. And you're off up in Spalding, Ohio. Is that correct?
Well, it was a Paulding without the S, but yes, Paulding.
Okay, my bad. I've got it wrote down,
That's
Paulding,
okay.
and then I said Spalding. I'm thinking about baseball and volleyball and basketball and every kind of other ball.
Yep.
You know that Spalding makes.
Right.
Where is?
This is not really a sports town, so we're
Yeah, where is Paulding at?
It's located in Paulding County, which is the third county south of the Michigan state line, and it borders the Indiana state line. So it's up in the northwest corner of Ohio.
Well, you're a fair distance then from me, but you're still in that Ohio wheaty country, ain't you?
Yeah, I find a few of those now and then.
And for our listeners that don't know the pun of what we're talking about, that's what everybody down here, and I guess everybody up there, calls large cents. Extremely hard for Ohio Wheaties. Extremely hard for us to find, but really not for y'all.
I find a lot of Indian head pennies too, though. So.
Well, there you go, Barb. We'll get her all riled up. Barb's not in yet. Chris Heimsoff has joined us, and also Jeff Ford I've seen, Gary Heckman, Paul Forsay. I'll try to go back and mention as many of those as I can. You picked up a permission at the doctor's office too, didn't you?
Yeah, it just so happens that I knew about a location not far from me. It's only about 10 minutes from me. It's along an old railroad. And the railroad's actually still being used for private use for a couple companies, but it was a ghost town, or it is a ghost town. It was just a little town. There wasn't really a whole lot there, but there was a hotel and a couple general stores, a blacksmith shop. There was a post office there, some houses, and it was the train station too. So anyway, I did not know, but my chiropractor's family owns that property, and he was telling me about it. And I said, well, who do I need to talk to about getting permission to metal detect there? And he says, me. So I was like, perfect. So that worked out really well. I was really pleased with that. Unfortunately, not a whole lot of it can be hunted right now. I'm going to have to wait. There's still one old house standing there. He said I can hunt the yard. That's actually where his father lives. But most everything else is in fields, and those are all planted. But then there's one little wooded area, but I won't even venture into the wooded area until, I don't know, probably late August, maybe September, when things start dying down a little bit. So it's going to be something in the back of my mind for a while.
And you've had good luck, I noticed, at ghost towns, haven't you?
There's I think 6 of them that I currently hunt in my area, and I've done pretty well over the last 30 years at those ghost town sites. This year, I hit a couple of them, but the one I found an artillery button, an 1821 to 1838 one-piece Eagle artillery button. And I was at that site last fall. I took Jeff Miller with me, and we both had been over that same exact spot pretty good. He used his CTX 3030, and I had my Deus. There's a couple other guys that hunt out there. I know the one uses a Whites. There's another guy in there with an AT Pro, and none of us picked it up, but I was able to find that thing with the Equinox, and I just could not believe that I pulled something like that out of there. But then another neat find from that area was just, probably a month ago, maybe not quite a month ago. I found a U.S. belt plate, Civil War belt plate, and that was actually in the field instead of the pasture side. And it was probably 13, 14 inches deep. They no longer plow it. It was well below the plow zone. That he just discs it and plants it. So the ground had green patina on it. The belt buckle came out looking really cool. So that was a big surprise when I found that. Last year I found a gold coin at a ghost town site. That was probably the second decent find from there. That was the first good find, I guess, great find. The first cool find was a half dime. I found that half dime probably, 30 yards from where I found the gold coin at. And then I also dug a counterfeit $50 from that same site.
I've seen all of those. I've seen every one of those finds that you're talking about, and that button is. I mean, you made my mouth water whenever I look at that. I'm a button man. I love finding buttons, and I love finding.
That's gorgeous.
It is gorgeous, and a one piece. And concave on the back. There was there's another button that I saw. I think it's a button. It had 1828 and a W in the middle. What is that?
Oh, button? That's actually a dime from the Netherlands.
Oh,
it's an 1828 Netherlands dime, and I found that at a different, at a house site in a field also.
Well, that's pretty fine too. It was an amazing looking find. I thought that was.
Oh yeah, I think it's in great condition.
Yeah, I thought that was thought it was a button. Sure did. Well, no wonder you hunt ghost towns in. Goodness gracious, you have found you found a little bit of everything, haven't you?
Yeah, that one that I found that artillery button at. See, that's part of it's field and part of it is cow pasture, and just like the ghost town I got permission for the other day, they all started right around 1850. And this railroad one, that one ran clear into 1905 until it started dying off. But it actually, one of the general stores was still being used until 1930. But these other towns that I hunt, most of those were done by 1880, 1890, right around in there. So I know everything I find there is going to be old. That's why I like to hunt those. But one of the other cool things I found at that site was a U.S. bit boss.
Yeah, I've seen it.
That was a neat find too. And I found that several years ago when I used to run a whites.
Yeah, and I think Butch Holcomb has never found a U.S. bit boss. That's kind of his white whale. I've only found one. And I've been with a guy that found one that was still on. Half the bit was there, just had one side, but it had the bit boss on it, and it was bent just a little bit. But I have been fortunate enough to find one. And you were talking about the Equinox is what that you would use to find that artillery button. Which one of the Equinox are you using, a 600 or 800?
I'm using the 800.
Are you? What's your impressions of that machine so far?
I don't have any regrets of buying it. It's a really good machine. I'm still learning it. It's definitely different than my Deus that I run, but boy, it's an excellent machine, especially for the money. $800 or $900 or whatever they retail for. Hardly anybody buys them for that. Usually it's a little bit less, but you can't. I don't think you can beat that machine for the money.
Well, now Tennessee Jeff and I, we bought the 600s, and we're not going to do any gold prospecting here, so we didn't need that feature. We're not going to slot our tones and everything like you can do on the 800 and also on the CTX. I had a CTX 3030, used it for a few years along with my other detectors, and I finally sold it. Missouri Mike bought that, and he's pleased with it. But me and Jeff got the 600s. We normally don't wear headphones, and so we didn't need the wireless headphone feature. And I'll just tell you, I am blown away by this machine. I'm hunting some sites that I have absolutely pounded with CTX and AT Pro and E-Track and other machines, and I'm pulling things that, pulling things with iron right on top of it, and you just hear just such a clear tone out of it.
Yeah, I've noticed that, and that's one of the things I noticed with my Deus was, as well as they do in the iron, there's one ghost town that I hunt I saw a little flat button laying on top of the ground. I ran my Deus over it, and it just absolutely would not pick that button up. I changed settings, would not pick it up. I changed programs, would not pick it up. I called my friend over. She checked it with hers. Hers wouldn't pick it up. She was running 9-inch coil. I was running 11. We tried anything we could think of, and it just would not pick that button up because there was so much iron in the ground below it and around it. It would not find it. So I'm wanting to go out there to that same area in that field, put a little button down and try, see if I can get my Deus to not find it and see if the Equinox will find it. But yeah, those Equinoxes, they seem to be doing pretty good. I don't know what Lion Lab did. I don't know if it's a multi-frequency or what, but it's a darn good machine.
I think it's a multi-frequency. And Gary Heckman put in that you can get the wireless headphones for the 600, and get them at Walmart, $59. They are,
really?
Yeah, and they are exactly the same. Heath Jones told me this. They're in the same box and everything from what you get from Mind Lab if you get the 800. So I'm not at all displeased that I got the Equinox. I just tell you, it's my go-to machine right now. The one thing I still prefer about the AT Pro, and I've got 2 AT Pros, and I'm not going to get rid of them. But one thing that I do prefer with the AT Pro is identifying the iron debris field.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can hear it so much more.
Yeah. And I hear it with the Equinox, but I really hear it with my Deus. Now, I'm not going to say at this point that I prefer one machine over the other. They both have their applications. But something I do like about my Deus is how crisp and loud the sounds are, and I can tell if it's 3 inches deep or 8 inches deep without, pinpointing. Is where the Equinox, that thing, unless it gives you a double beat because it's right on the surface or just below, if it's 2 inches deep, it sounds exactly the same as it does 8 inches deep.
Yeah.
So that's taking a little bit to get used to, and I already know that in my head, but that's no big deal. But that's just one of the things. The sounds aren't as prominent, I don't think, as they are with my Deus. But I still love using both machines, and I use them together in the same sites. People ask me, "Do you think your Deus would have found a belt plate?" Absolutely, I think it would have. Now, it had the chance to find that artillery button, and it didn't. That 1877 Indian head penny I did the other day, I used my Equinox when I found that. Where the Deus I found that, probably it was I don't know, probably 4 inches deep in the field, and I don't see where that would have been a problem for that either. So
I did and Gary Heckman said if you put the 600 in all metal mode, and what he means, push the horseshoe there, that you can hear that, and you can, and you would probably have to raise the volume on those lower tones there, which you can do. But the AT Pro is, of course, I've used it since it came out, and I love scouting with the AT Pro, and I love hunting with it, but it's passed up a lot of things that this 600 has found. And Barb asked a question if the headphones for GPX would work on the Equinox. They will, but you would have to get an adapter to go from a 1/4 inch to 1/8 inch, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Because the Equinox, those headphones have that little 1/8 inch jack that goes in the back, where the Mind Lab GPX has a 1/4 inch. So you just have to get a step down adapter for that and make it work. Right. So you kind of named through some detectors that you got. Which one did you start with?
Oh my goodness! Well, I'm old, and I started 34 years ago. So I started out with a Bounty Hunter 840, just a simple little big rectangular box machine with a U-shaped handle, and I actually have one of those relics in one of my relic rooms. Got about 4 knobs on it. Took 2 9-volt batteries. That's what I started out with. That was when I was 14 years old.
So you've been in the hobby for a while. You're a veteran at this and have seen the evolution of metal detecting. I got started in like 1976, so I've been in it a long time. Not as dedicated as I am now, kind of off and on. Life gets in the way, and you do a few other things and have some other interests, but you always come back to it. And I started out with Whites, because Whites was the detector to go to back in the day.
Right. Yeah, I went to a Whites after. Well, I bought the Bounty Hunter off of. I had a paper out, and I bought it off one of my customers, and then I bought another Bounty Hunter, the 8400. I thought, well, geez, another Zero. It has to be a better machine. So the 840, and it really wasn't. I found a lot with that 840 for being an old machine like it was. And at that time, I hunted a lot of field sites because I arrowhead hunted also, and I would find where houses were in these fields when I was arrowhead hunting. So I'd find a lot of neat old stuff in the fields. But then I went to, oh gosh, I'm not sure the exact order. I ended up having a Technetics Eagle. This is like 1990. I think Whites came out with the Eagle, and Technetics did also. I remember seeing a Calico flyer said the Eagles have landed, and it was a Technetics Eagle and a Whites Eagle. I bought the Technetics. I didn't find a whole lot with that machine. Then I ended up buying an Eagle 2, Whites Eagle 2 SL, and that was a good old machine. Not very user friendly, but it was a good old machine. And then after that, I ended up buying an XLT, White's XLT, and then the Spectrum XLT after that. And I owned 3 or 4 of those, and I found a lot with those machines. But then here, probably 4 years ago, I switched and bought a Deus, and that was a huge learning curve. I was not prepared for that. It took forever to really learn that machine. It seemed like forever, probably 6 months to really get a handle around on that machine, playing with settings and trying them and liking them or disliking them and tweaking on those. And I have since created a pretty nice program that I use, and I've given to a few people, and they really like it too. So.
Well, that's great.
That's how I've evolved.
We're coming up on a hard break here. I'm going to go ahead and put the call-in number here. When we come back from this commercial break, we'll take your calls. If you want to keep up with what's going on in the metal detecting world, then you need to be a subscriber to American Digger magazine. Butch and Anita Holcomb are the publishers of the magazine and have won awards for 3 straight years for being the best digger magazine on the market. American Digger magazine is available in both print and digital formats, so no matter where you live in the world, you can enjoy the latest happenings in the hobby. You can get in touch with American Digger magazine by going to AmericanDigger.com or give them a call at 770-362-8671 and be sure and tell them that you heard it on Relics Radio. And our call-in number is 270-495-0315. If you have a question for our guest tonight, Mike Speiser, we will remind you that we are a family-friendly show. We got a big following in our county of school kids that at the schools where I go and give presentations, and I'm sure that Eva, Mike's daughter, is going to listen to this program as well. So just kind of, we don't want to get in trouble with the kids, do we, Mike?
No, absolutely not.
You know, you were talking about the Deus being well, hold on just a minute. We got a call that's coming in. Pete Floyd. Do you know a guy named Pete Floyd?
Vaguely.
Vaguely?
Yeah, vaguely.
Well, Pete is in the house. What's going on, Pete?
Hey, how are you?
Doing great.
Hi, Pete.
Hey, Mike. Hey, I'm on radio. Do I need to use my radio voice?
Whatever you want to do is fine with us.
You're listening to Relics Radio with Digging with Seven and Tennessee Jeff.
There you go.
Check pretty good.
Check's in the mail, Pete.
Okay. I'll be counting the moments, my friend.
Okay.
Don't forget Pothole Pete.
And for those of you that don't know, and I'm looking at my schedule here, Pete's going to be on the show July the 12th.
Finally.
Yeah, finally.
Yeah, I was in a training every Thursday night for 3 months.
Yeah.
So I just couldn't get on.
Yeah, I had reached out to you to see if you could do the show, and you told me that you were tied up, and then sent me a message here a week or so ago. So we're looking forward to that. And
yeah, I'm sure it'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. And I'm hoping that you spill the beans on Mike here. Tell us some stories on Mike Speiser.
Well, we had an event, a group dig plan down here. We had a pasture to do. It was old. There was a 1700s coin found in the area. By the time they got down there, it had grown up quite a bit, and it wasn't all that we'd hoped for, but we had a good time. We had a few rain showers. It was a little warm, and but the story was in my yard. We were waiting for people to arrive, and my house, which is newer, is on a very, very old lot. And I had probably spent in the spring, late winter of 2015 just digging the trash out of my yard. I mean, I'm talking about crankshafts, cans, you name it, I dug it up with my little 350 Ace. And so, I pretty much had given up on my yard. And so, folks were arriving. Mike arrived, and I said, you guys are welcome to go ahead and detect around in my yard. Mike, and you finish the story. How long were you swinging your disc before you hit what you hit? And I know what you want to tell what it was that you hit.
I think I was swinging it 5 minutes before I shut it off. But Pete asked me to check a site over by a tree. He thought something was iron, and I went over and confirmed, yes, it was iron. And then, I turned 90 degrees or 180 degrees and started walking. I dug a wheat penny. I think it was a 1927 wheat penny. And I thought, well, this is promising. And got to the end of that walk, which was probably 20 feet long at the most, and turned and started coming back and got a nice high tone, dug down and pulled out a nail. I thought, well, I knew it wasn't his nail, so I kept pinpointing it, and I saw silver in the hole. And I don't know, it was probably 6 inches at the most, probably around 6 inches. And pulled it out. It was a nice barber quarter, really nice condition.
It was.
Turns out it was very fine condition, and cleaned it up with some water and took a few pictures, and turns out it was a 1909 barber quarter, which is a semi-key date also. So that was pretty exciting.
Now that's what you get.
Truly, I was glad for him.
Yeah.
Because I had my chance at it.
Yeah. But now that's what you get when you turn people loose in your yard, with that kind of experience.
Yeah, well, live and learn. So
I don't want to go into specifics on what book value is, but it's in the several $100 range. So
yeah. I really was glad for him.
Anyway, I told Pete, I said, well, you just got to, it was a good signal, but it wasn't the cleanest, I said, you really got to pay attention to your signals. If just get a little squeak, dig it, because it could be a good target mixed with junk. And I started doing that, and then Pete can go on and tell you some of the other stuff he's found since then.
Oh, in my yard, yeah, and Mike actually inspired me to spend more time and slow down. I was using the Pro, and I actually got a Standing Liberty and a Buffalo and a silver nickel. But I mean, it's still full of iron in places. The house was, I think they burned it down and then bulldozed it into the basement. I often tell myself if I was wealthy, I'd bring a backhoe in and dig that basement out. But I'm not wealthy, so I won't do that.
I think,
but there's still stuff there, and of course, I'm in the years where I'm a little more choosy about getting down there and digging, So, but it was a great experience. It really was. Some really great memories there.
Yeah, that was fun. I'm thankful you invited us down. It was nice to meet you and become friends with you.
Yeah. I try to keep up with what you post, and it's very amazing what you recover. And
a
lot of people can be inspired by what you do. I know, like I said, it served an inspiration for me. So just to really, and now I'm on the Max, and I'm not disappointed that I got it. I had thought about getting the Deus, but I was afraid of that learning curve, like you had mentioned. I was listening to the program earlier, and it just kind of scared me off a little bit. But I do pretty well with the Max. When you go over iron with that thing, the thing that I found with the difference between it and the Pro is that the Pro, for me, I just had more difficulty telling what was iron. With the Max, you really get that sound, that chattering sound. And I'll tell you this, I have dug 22 short empty shells, cartridges, out of iron infested with that, my Mac. So, I mean, I'm not at all disappointed. And, I dug a 3-cent nickel just across the road. There's an old farm over there and a trime with it. And so, yeah, I'm not disappointed that I got it. I do find the Equinox alluring, and of course the price is a little more in my range than the Deus. So
right,
it's not out of the question that I might not try the Equinox someday. But I guess I'm just afraid of the learning curve. So
I'll give you a pointer on the Equinox. If you decide that you want to keep the cost down and buy the 600, it is a great machine. I'm not at all sorry that I got it and didn't get the 800. Of course, it depends on what kind of hunting that you're going to do. If you're going to go,
well, I'm like Mike. I love to find the places that are long gone, and I spend a lot of time in those places.
Yeah.
Once I get them. And boy, they are tough. This log site we've had, it has really been tough. I mean, it stood till the 70s, and there's just all kinds of stuff. So, well, I don't want to take away from Mike's time, but Mike, so good to talk to you. And Seven,
thanks for calling in.
Yeah. Thanks for the call, Pete. And looking forward to having you on the show and being with you here in a few weeks.
Yeah, and we'll be in touch, and of course I'll be on Drama in the Dirt, so try to get out there at least every week on that. So
those are always fun to watch.
Yeah, go ahead before you leave, Pete, and tell everybody what your YouTube channel is and your Facebook, so that they know where to go and find Pothole Pete.
Yeah, Pothole Pete Floyd. That's what I came up with, and then, of course, the show's called Drama in the Dirt. And I'm on Facebook under Drama in the Dirt on Facebook, so we're easy to find.
Good job.
So,
yep.
Yeah, I appreciate it so much. And thank you for letting me put a little plug in there. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Always. I mean, we're here to help everybody, that we can. And we're all family. It's all a big community right here.
Well, and that's the way I look at it. And I'm looking at the younger generation. I mean, it's such a wonderful thing for young people to get involved in.
Yeah.
I mean, we have Luke. He's 14. He loves it. And, of course, he broke his foot recently and hasn't been able to get out like he wants to. And I want to see him find a large scent so badly.
Yeah.
So.
And I'll say something for Pete. His is a family show. All the family is involved in that, and that's great. Hey, Pete, thanks for the call.
You bet. You guys take care.
Uh-huh.
Bye-bye. Yeah, bye, Mike. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, great call. Good guy, too, I tell you.
Yeah, he is.
Hey,
real good guy.
Mike, if you were to, and we're about 5 minutes out from another hard break, but just briefly, if you could, and the phone lines, guys, are open. You can call in 270-495-0315. What advice would you give to beginning hunters now?
Research and patience. People expect to turn the machine on and go out and start finding awesome stuff right away. Some people do. Most people don't. You're going to dig a lot of junk. Be patient with it. Don't get frustrated. Don't get disappointed. You see a lot of people digging really nice stuff, and if you're not, just keep at it.
And it's like you were telling Pete, too. They're not all going to be good signals. That was hard for me to learn. That and if you swing fast through a site that you're working, you're going to miss those signals. I think back at some of the best finds that I have found, Spanish Reals and some of my best buttons, some of my best finds have just been little squeakers, and I was going so slow. And, if I could tell anybody anything, it's just go real slow. I like what Jeff Ford says about Plugmaster Ford. He always says, I take my coil and I paint the ground. It's like painting a wall. I don't want to miss a spot.
Oh, yeah.
And so if you do that, you're going to find a lot of things. And if you'll approach it from a different way, which really brings up another question. When you find or get a brand new permission, how do you first approach a site?
I like to find, say it's, are we talking about a field or a yard? There's a big difference.
Well,
I don't hunt very many yards.
Yeah, I don't either. I'm talking mainly about a ghost town, about a field or in the woods. Well, yeah.
I try to find where the biggest concentration of debris is, whether it's glass and pottery, brick, iron, non-ferrous metal, and then I work away from that just a little bit. I try to stay out on the outer edge of that because that's usually right where something stood, and I realize a lot of the places have dirt floors or big cracks in the floors, and they probably lost stuff through the floors, and then you have your scatter that drags stuff across. But I usually work away from that first and then work toward it as I'm trying to finish up. That's usually how I approach a site.
Whenever
I try to envision where a yard would be or a play area and go from there.
Yeah. Whenever I can think back a few years back in my metal detecting career, and you'd get a new permission and you'd get into a spot and you'd get into all of that iron and everything, and I started avoiding those spots. You'd say, oh, there's a bunch of iron and nails and everything here. I need to kind of skirt around that. And you'll find a little bit out from the side, but the bulk of your finds are going to be right in the middle of all that junk, aren't they?
Right. Yeah. And that's why I have a couple different programs that I run in the same machine. That way, I get out and about away from that area. I can switch it over to one of my programs that doesn't react as fast and get a little bit better depth than what I would use where all that iron is. And I need to really, change the reactivity so it picks up each individual target better. So that's how I go about it. Ghost towns are a little bit different than just a single house site in a field. Ghost towns, I know that there is no getting away from it. You're just going to dive right into an iron-infested area and go. So I use my quickest program for that.
Yeah, hang on to that thought. We'll talk about that after the break right here. If your passion is metal detecting, then you know how much your success is based on the equipment you use. Let my buddy Tim Henderson of Murray Branch Outdoors in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, help you with that. Tim is an authorized dealer of Garrett, XP Deus, Tesoro, and macro detectors and supplies, and he is now an authorized dealer for Mine Lab. So, if you're looking to get your hands on the new Equinox 600 or 800, then Tim is your guy. Murray Branch Outdoors is not only competitive in their prices, but the service after the sale is second to none. Tim not only sells detectors, he uses them, and so he can answer any questions you might have. Murray Branch Outdoors also deals in used detectors, and he'll take your old detector in on trade when you decide to upgrade. So give Tim of Murray Branch Outdoors a call at 615-948-4611 and be sure and tell him Relics Radio sent you. Hey, Mike, you're talking about going in and hitting those ghost towns. Some of our listeners may not know what a ghost town is. Explain that to them.
Well, there's actually different categories of ghost towns. You have what a true ghost town was a town that there's nothing there anymore. You have semi-ghost towns, which is a town that used to be pretty good size and now just may only be a few houses or something along that line. Another ghost town category is a paper town where it was just plotted, put on paper, and never really developed. The ghost towns I hunt are the semi-ghost towns and the true ghost towns where there's absolutely nothing standing anymore.
What caused those towns to lose their occupation? What made them ghost towns? Different things?
Well, in my area, in my area, this part of Ohio was settled kind of late, like 1840s, 1850s. And one of the biggest contributors to my county is the old canal system. So there were several of these towns that popped up along the canals. Now, I don't know how the towns became, if that was like a camp where the workers would stay and then continue digging and come back to, and then the town just stayed, or if it was just actually a town that they established after the canal was built. I don't know. But there were several on the canal. Well, the canal was in use until pretty much the late 1880s into the 1890s, but the last canal boat went through this one where I'm at in 1911, I think it was. So they still used it briefly, but it died down because of the railroad then. The first railroad in my county was in the 1850s, and then most of the other ones came through in the 1880s. So it was just a more economical, faster way to transport the goods and people than what the canal was. Plus, it didn't go to just like Lake Erie or the Ohio River. So you had different places along the way where the trains would stop. So the railroads killed the canal, and then those towns kind of went to the wayside where these other ones along the railroads would pop up.
Right. And
that's how that came to be. It's
just the way that technology and how our environment changed, transportation and things like that. And, normally when we think of a ghost town, we always think about those gold prospecting areas where people moved in, and then as the gold kind of panned out, so to speak, they left those places. A lot of those out west, we don't necessarily have many of those here, but it's the same scenario, isn't it?
Yeah. Most of the little towns along the canal were ports where they would bring the timber to. there was a lot of timber in my county, and they had to clear out the forest too. It was, my whole county was covered by swamp at one time, the Great Black Swamp. But there's all this timber that needed cleared out to really get the county going, and they would put those logs on the canal boats and transport them to wherever using the canal boats.
Yeah. We got a call in. Denny Morrison. What are you doing tonight, Denny?
I'm listening to my buddy Mike.
Hi, Denny.
He's my mentor.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah, we go way back. No, way back.
Way back. Yeah.
Well, good to have you on.
Everything I needed to know about the dais, and I still don't know anything. But I'm learning.
Taught him everything he knows, but not everything I know.
Exactly. Yep. He's a good hunter, I tell you that. That's for sure, and a good teacher.
Well, you can
and a good friend.
Yeah,
yep.
you can tell that by the finds that you see on his pages. Whenever I first started looking into him and thinking that I might want him for a guest here, the thing that drew me was the things that he finds. You know, it looked like a mirror of some of the things that we find. You know, where you got suspender clips and flat buttons and Indians and things like that. So.
Yep.
But now, Denny,
you should see his collection.
I'd love to. I sure would.
What he shows on Facebook is nothing.
What amazes me is how much Civil War stuff I find here, and I can go into that later on why. But I've gone on several organized hunts, and I've done okay on a couple. But I don't find near the quantity that I do here. I find a lot of lead when I go on these hunts, and around here we don't find the bullets, but I find a lot of buttons and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always like a lot of these talk shows, or especially the ones where you can see where they're chatting back and forth. I don't see that on this channel, but a lot of people say there's no Civil War relics in my state or around me. I usually look it up right away, and I went, are you wrong? Just like Ohio, they had 330,000 soldiers from Ohio in the Civil War, and they lived somewhere. And most of them were farmers, and that's what we like, don't we, Mike?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So.
And that's why I find the stuff, returning veterans that came back, and that's why I find what I do here.
And, most of our soldiers here in our area were from Ohio and Pennsylvania. More from Ohio, probably. Now, in my county here in Kentucky, it was the 9th Pennsylvania. But down with Tennessee Jeff, where we hunt down there was a big, I think it's 105th Ohio was there, and some other Ohio units. And we love those guys because they brought us a few large cents.
Yeah.
I'm serious, Denny.
We laugh because we find a lot of those up here.
I know it.
Yeah.
And I'm serious. Those are the places that we find our large cents, is where the soldiers from up there where you guys are, they brought them down here,
Right.
I've been done.
And then
I've found a couple of them on those hunts that I go to.
Actually, Mike, the Finley group, and I think it's the 57th, but I can't remember for sure. And they had a big regiment, and they went through Chattanooga and in that area in Tennessee.
Okay.
Yeah. And of course, they had camps around here too. That's what's really nice.
Yeah, and they took those things back home with them, didn't they, Mike?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's one field that I went to. It's just a house site, and many years ago I didn't know what it was until just a couple of years ago, but it's a belt keeper, or a keeper adjuster, and it's for the sword belt plate. And I also had found a plate there that was, oh gosh, I don't know, that's probably 25 years ago when I found the belt plate there. So I found both those items at this same site, and I thought that was pretty neat.
The sword belt adjuster and also the rifle sling, they had those same adjusters on them. I found two or
Yeah,
three
they
of
did.
those. Yeah, and
Yep.
they had the same ones. Hey, Denny, tell us some stories on Mike.
I don't know. I mean, we have hunted some together, and just not enough. In fact, we're going hunting at about another weekend, about 2 weeks, right, Mike?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a couple weekends, yeah.
So, yep, and so I imagine it's going to be a hot one, that's for sure. So, and make sure you bring your tick spray, Mike.
yeah, I have to do that.
What kind
We
of
got a good place to bunk now.
what kind of
Right.
what kind of site are y'all going to hunt here in a week or two?
It's a top secret.
It's
We'll
an
let you know after we
invitational.
do it, okay? Is that right, Mike?
Yeah. I be honest with you, I really don't know all the specifics on the site. It's an invitational type thing, so.
Yep. It should be interesting. We'll see. I've hunted sites similar to it, and so has Mike. So we'll see what we find. It's not in a field, I can tell you that. So.
Well, now you got our interest peaked up.
Yeah, we'll tell you all about it later. That's all I can tell you.
That's what we have to do. We had to get you guys back on, get you to call in or something other to a future show and tell us how it went and everything. Tell us what all you found.
I'm
Yeah.
thinking it's going to be a silver-infested site, but I've been wrong once or twice before in my life. So
I really believe you're
We'll see.
right, Mike. I'm hoping. I mean, the site that I hunted like that, and I know you have.
Mhm.
Buddy and we had a contest one day who could find the most silver $50, and all I could find was Walking Liberties. I think I had 5 or 6, and all he could find was Franklin's. I couldn't find a Franklin, and he couldn't find a Walker.
Well, that had to have been disappointing. Jeez.
Yeah, it was really bad.
Yeah,
Greatest thing.
sound
we
like
were
a
right.
sound like a miserable hunt to me. I tell you.
Well, the funny thing about that, we were hunting with Ace 250s, Ben, with a bigger coil, and that was a crazy place to hunt. Gee, man, at Christmas.
Yeah.
I have to laugh.
Sounds like it.
A group came in from another state to hunt that site where my buddy and I hunted, and they found one dime, and they said, "Man, whoever hunted this place, there ain't nothing left." Well, we hunted it for 6 years, and we're still hunting it, just like Mike.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, but the finds are few and far between, but they're there.
Oh, yeah.
Thank goodness for freezing and thawing. That's all I got to say.
Mm-hmm.
It does move things, doesn't it?
It sure does.
Yeah.
You get much? Well, you get some of that down your way. You
Yeah,
get
a little
of course,
bit.
in Kentucky.
Yeah, a little bit. We had a couple of cold snaps this winter, and
Right.
it'll move things. It'll move brass more than it will anything. I have found some eagle buttons right on top of the ground,
I'll be darned.
and I know that's what's moved them. Found a few flat buttons, that way as well, but the Civil War Eagle cuff buttons seem like that they really move up whenever you have some hard freezes and things.
Right. Have you
Wow.
ever found any OVMs?
No,
Well, I haven't either, but it'd be nice. Yeah, cool. Well, I'll let you guys talk. I'm just butting in here.
Oh, thanks, Denny. Good
Yeah.
talking to you.
we appreciate the call, Denny.
And I'll be talking to you very soon, Mike.
Yeah, we want to
Absolutely.
update on that hunt.
Okay.
Tell you about it later. We just can't right now. It's we're been sworn to secrecy.
I understand.
All right, buddy. Good. It's a good program. I missed you guys down in Virginia. I'm sorry. I didn't know you were talking. I ought to come up here and sit with you.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
you'll come again.
we will. Don't know that we're going to come this fall. I think that we're going to go up to CWPPO in the fall. So
Okay.
if you're off up that way, we're going to be live at trying to work it out at the Chattanooga show that American Digger's putting on July the 28th and 29th.
Yeah.
We're going
I
to
know
do,
Butch wanted me to come down there for that, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it. But it'd be neat.
yeah. Well,
They've
we're
got
going to.
hot-
We're going to do live shows down there, and I'm going to take all of my stuff and engineer for all 3 shows, American Digger History Seekers and Relics Radio. And
okay.
It's going to it'd be a great time. So if you can come down that way, well, you ought to. Nothing definite on that, but that's what we're talking about. And
Alrighty.
But good call. Good to hear from you, Denny.
All right. Talk to you guys later. Bye now.
Okay.
All right. Take care, Denny.
Yep.
And we will tell you that the phone lines are still open. 270-495-0315 if somebody wants to help me and put that in the chat. Mike, a couple of things that I wanted to ask. In your opinion, what is the greatest thing that you've ever found?
It would, most people would probably balk at the idea of what I consider the greatest thing that I found. I found a lot of nice relics, a lot of pretty nice coins, but the one thing that's really special to me that I just absolutely would not, I would part with anything I have except for this one little thing. All it is a simple little silver ring. And I found that. That was one of the very first things I ever found. It was in my parents' yard when I was 14. And I showed my mom, and when I showed her, she just started crying. I thought, what in the world? Here, my grandfather had made that ring for my mom, and he died 3 months before I was born. So she had lost that ring in the yard and kind of forgot about it. And then I found this ring, and that ring means more to me than anything else that I found.
Wow, what an amazing story! And
he made that for her 16th birthday.
Wow, some of the greatest finds that top our list. If you'll notice, and I ask this question from a lot of people, and a whole lot of times it is something that is really, really personal, like that, and what an amazing find, and to give that back to her, and I can imagine that she would cry because it was just something really special, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was just a little silver coin that it was made out of a ring. It's perfectly round except for on top. It's got a flat spot. You can't see any of the reeded edge or anything on it. So I don't know exactly what his process was in making the ring, but that's all it was. Just a little ring made out of a coin.
Well, that's what Nick Haas just asked. Was it a coin ring? So evidently, yes, it was. Yeah,
it wasn't a spoon type where they spoon over the edges and draw out the middle. It wasn't that kind. But no, other things that I have found that are pretty notable. I've got 4 U.S. belt plates, 3 breastplates, a couple sword plate. I got 1 sword plate, 1 officer's buckle. As far as Civil War relics goes, crotal bells. I've got upwards of 70 crotal bells, I suppose. Those are always fun to find. I don't know. I just got so much.
See, that's something else that we don't have. We don't have any crotal bells. Never found a crotal bell. Never have.
Well, a lot of people call them sleigh bells, and that's for a reason, because most of the time they were draped over the horses as they pulled their sleighs in the wintertime. So that's pretty much why you find them in the northern states.
Can you verify a story that I heard? We've all heard the saying, "I'll be there with bells on." And I've heard that the origin of that story was if you had a cart or a wagon and you had your bells on your horses or on your wagons and everything, if you had trouble on the road and somebody stopped and helped you and got you going again, it was the practice back in the day that you would give them the bells off of your wagon. So the saying, "I'll be there with bells on," would mean I will be there and conceivably not have any problems on the trip. Have you ever heard that?
I've never heard that.
Well, I've heard that, and I don't know how to verify it, but I've heard that. The
only story I've ever heard that has anything to do with bells is working the graveyard shift. And way back in the day, they would bury people without really having a good way of confirming if they were dead or not. So they would hang bells along their grave site, and they would attach a string from the bell to the person. And if they should come to in their casket underground, they would start wailing, I suppose, and ring that bell, and they'd be able to dig them out.
Goodness gracious!
I have been in old cemeteries and have seen bells along grave sites. So that's the only thing I've heard about bells.
That is one time I don't want somebody to say, I'll be there with my bells on.
That's where working the graveyard.
That's right.
Where working the graveyard shift come in, because people would have to sit there 24 hours a day and
listen for bells.
At night, yep.
And listen for bells. Oh, man.
Right.
I tell you what, a cruel trick to play back in the day, and I'm sure that it was probably done, would be some young kids, some teenagers or things, get some bells and walk up in a graveyard, and I can just imagine. Chris Heimsoff, he's in the chat, and he said that he heard the same story that I did about bells, but I hadn't heard that about. And Matt Purdue said that would be referring to a dead ringer.
Yeah.
But yeah, we don't find any crotal bells here. Got another call coming in. I have to kind of watch this other computer. Got Jeff Miller calling in.
Just hang up on that one. You don't want that call.
Just hang up? Okay. Hey, Jeff, are you there?
Mr. Roy, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing great.
Good show tonight. Got a great guest, one of the best guys I know. I talk to this guy more than I talk to my own mother, all the time.
Probably more than your wife, too.
Yeah, probably. Awesome guy. But I called in just to say hey, and also wanted to stir the pot a little bit before you close the show. Ask Mike about the park that he has named after himself in Southern Illinois. Now, he lives in Ohio, 6 hours away, but this guy's good enough. He has a park named after him in Southern Illinois. And I'll go ahead and hang up and listen in. Thanks.
I don't know if you need to hang up or not, Jeff. You might all want to stick around for just a minute and
no, he can hang up. Nobody will miss him.
Yeah. So we want to know.
All right.
We want to know about the park then.
Well, I went down to his house one summer, a couple summers ago, I believe. 2 summers ago this coming year, and it was just hot. And we hunted a couple of yards and found a few things, but we kept driving by this nice big park with huge shade trees, and I just kept telling Jeff, let's hunt there. No, there's nothing there. I've hunted it, and there's nothing left, yada, yada, yada. Well, okay, I didn't get to hunt it. And I came home.
Nothing but junk in there.
Nothing but junk. He's apparently bored one day or something, goes up to the park and starts finding seeded coins and barber coins and 2-cent pieces and
silver thimbles.
Silver thimbles. So he named this park Speiser Silver Park. And I've cussed him several times because of it. You know, I'm not good enough to take there, but I'm good enough to point out places for you to hunt.
I had just got the CTX with the big coil on it. I got that big, huge monster coil, and I'm like, well, there's so much junk up here, which totally made no sense. But there's so much junk up here. Maybe good stuff is deep. I'll take this. This is supposed to be deep. I'll take it up here. And just like using a new machine, you don't know what you're doing, so you tend to dig more things. You're digging anything. And I popped up. First thing was a barber quarter, and I couldn't believe it. And I thought Mike is going to think I'm so full of it. And sure enough, he did. He still does. But
I came back down that one day though, and you were still at work. And the first place I went was the park, and my first hole was a barber dime. So I was content after that.
You got part of it, didn't
but
you?
I got part of the wealth, yes. But no, that park was so hard to hunt for me. But with the Deus, you know, one of the problems with that machine is the EMI with it, and that whole park is surrounded by power lines, and it was just terrible for me to try to hunt that thing.
And that is one place where CTX is a little bit better because you can cancel a whole bunch of that out, can't you, Jeff?
Yeah. Even the Equinox, you can cancel that out.
I had a target there at the Speiser Park, and I said, Mike, come check this. What do you think? You dig this? And he's like, no, that's junk. I wouldn't dig it. And I'm like, this is good enough. I'm digging it. It was just that you were talking earlier, that high
tiny little tweak.
That little tweak, you know, and it was just enough there that I was like, okay, I know this part. I wouldn't dig that in a yard. I would dig that at this park. And sure enough, what was it, Mike? Was it Merc, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was Merc dime, like a 7 or 8 inch Merc dime.
And you know, Jeff, a lot of people, you were talking about that 17-inch coil for the CTX. I had that. I had the 6-inch and the stock coil too. I would use that 17 a lot of times in junky areas, which goes against conventional wisdom, but did it with a little bit of success too, because it will sometimes it gets down below all that stuff, don't you think?
Yeah, it did make it dig different. I ended up getting rid of it just because I quit using it. I went back to all my yards that I'd already previously pounded and then took it. And I still found stuff, but the 5-pound machine plus that 20-pound coil on the end of it, you know, it was just too much. So I got rid of it. And that's I haven't swung my CTX since I got my Equinox, and that's the whole weight thing. I'm comfortable with it. The weight was a big one for the CTX. I still have the CTX, but I don't know how often I'm going to swing it.
Well, I don't. I sold mine, and the CTX is a great machine if you door knock and hunt yards. I don't think it can.
And I do a lot of that.
Yeah, I don't think it can be beat, but the weight is a killer on that thing. And the older you get, of course, Jeff says, I'm an old man, and I am, born in 1950, so be 68 years old this year. And, I have to watch what I swing, but, I can take this Equinox, and I can swing it all day long. I can pretty well do that with the AT Pro, but it's my hunting style. I don't really swing. I just scoop my coil around on the ground.
Use it as a walker, Lloyd. Use it as a walker. Hey, guys, you have a good night. I'm going to get off here. I'll listen to the rest of it.
Hey, good call.
All right, I'll talk to you in the morning, Jeff.
Hey, thanks for calling, Jeff.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, great call.
Me
do what?
He calls me just about every other day, and I called him yesterday, I guess it was, and he didn't answer the phone. That's where I don't a lot of times. I always have to call him back. And he said, "What'd you need?" I said, "Nothing. I just figured I'd call you for once and not get an answer." So, but he's a good guy, really good friend, one of my best friends.
Hey, guys, the lines are open again, still open, 270-495-0315. If you want to talk with Mike Speiser or anything related to metal detecting, they are open. Talking about people that you hunt with, who has been the greatest influence on you? And that may be putting you on a spot. It may be more than one person, and that's fine, but who has influenced you, people that you've hunted with?
I don't want to sound like a jerk or anything, but really, really nobody. And the only guy that really influenced me is when I first started. I was watching a guy metal detect at the schoolyard where I went to school at, and to see him being able to dig up silver coins and things, I found that was so neat. And the very next day I was telling one of the guys in my paper route about that, and he says, "Well, I have one, I'll sell you." So I ended up buying his. That was my influence right there. I took off on my own. I learned stuff on my own. So, you know, I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to sound like a jerk and say I'm not influenced by anybody, but I'm really not. So that's probably not the answer you're looking for.
No, it is. I mean, I want you to be honest on something other, and it kind of gives me a little bit of an insight that you're kind of a self-taught hunter, and a lot of times those are the guys to watch, because you're more critical on yourself than anyone else would be, and I've hunted with several people over the years, and I always have enjoyment doing that. You know, it's always a good time and make a lot of nice friends that way. But and research, you know, I've learned on my own how to do all this research that I do now. I've been doing my style of research for probably close to 30 years, and I'm continuing to. And I see a lot of other people talk about the same style of research now. So. Well, that's pretty neat. That was something that I wanted to get to, and to tell you the truth, looking at your Facebook and all of your finds, you've got a background there that's real interesting, and I think that it kind of maybe plays into some of your research. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. Running across the old maps of your area, once you can dig those out and start studying those and understanding what's what and what's where, then you'll start finding these old sites that are no longer there or that are still there, you know, like an old house site or something. That's really key. I use a lot of maps that I actually got in the libraries, and I'm seeing online. Most of the maps that I have are not online. I'm seeing some different ones online, but most of the ones I have I had to get them from the libraries in the local history section. So, you know, not everything's digitized these days. So if you're not happy with what you're finding as far as your mapping and local research, take a drive down to a local library and see what they have, because I'm sure they have it.
And to your local courthouse, too, because I know our courthouse, they've got an archive section that, they kept old transactions, I guess you'd say, old tax maps and things like that. And have you ever used MapRika, the program that you can bring whatever map that you've got in and put reference points in it and fine-tune the locations that you see on the maps? Have you ever used that?
Yes, I have every township for 2 counties in MapRika that I use a lot.
That is a great program, because one thing that I use is USGS topographical maps, and you're able to find where the old house sites were. And our earliest one here in Monroe County, Kentucky, is 1929. And you say, well, that's not real old. It's not, but one out of every 10 of those 1929 houses that were there, and then our next USGS map is 1939, and so I'm particularly interested in those houses I see on the 29 map, but I don't see on the 39, which suggests to me that they are much older than 1929. And we found probably 4 or 5 colonial house sites by doing that. There was a there was a turn of the century house built on top of it. As you get the jar lids and all that junk out, you'll find an occasional flat button, and then you'll start finding the reals and things like that a little bit deeper. So research is the key.
My map for my county, the oldest detailed map I can find is 1892. And I don't consider that old compared to the county to the north of me. I have 1866, I have 1876 also, or 78, and I have an 1890. The county to the east of me, I have 1880. The county to the south of me is 1886. Indiana, I see a lot of them over in Indiana. They're in the 1860s. So, 1892 isn't all that old to me either. But like you were saying, a lot of these houses were there well before that. But, my area really wasn't settled real well until 1850s is really when people started piling in here. There was a few in the 40s and 30s, but they were sparse. So I'll also look at, like you were saying, a newer map. I use a 1917 map, and I'll look and see, I'll compare. Is this house site here? No, it isn't. Okay, well, like you said, it's probably an older site. Maybe it just quit being used and no longer is there. It got torn down. Maybe it burnt down. Who knows? So I do that also.
What kind of maps are those? Are they tax maps or what?
They're actually plat book maps.
Oh, okay.
It shows the owner's name, how many acres, approximately where the house was. It shows the schoolhouses. It shows churches, towns, railroads, roads, all that stuff.
Yeah. And, some of that stuff, especially roads, they change, and it's kind of hard to find the reference points that you want. And Denny's calling back. He's got something else he wants to say to you. Hey, Denny, are you on?
Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm on. I actually got a book that with 5 counties in it and all the townships from each county from the 1860s. Here I'm a little bit south of Mike, and we were settled a little bit sooner than he was because he's really up in the Black Swamp. So there wasn't, people would go through there with wagons, and mosquitoes were bigger than birds. They were huge. Nobody could settle that. Even the Indians went around the Black Swamp. They didn't go through the darn thing. So our area was settled in the 1860s. So, and that's, I call my book my metal detecting Bible. I spent months making this thing, and people look at it all the time. Some guys say, well, actually they get tired, and I'm sure Mike belonged to a club. They got tired of looking at my finds because there was nothing that I would come in every month with a handful of silver coins or anything. And where do you find this? And I'd actually hand them a plat map from their township, where they live, and they could not figure out what it was. And Mike, I bet you've seen this. You might get a plat map to a farmer, and all plat maps in Ohio point to the north. And I don't care which way he's standing, he has to turn around and look to the north. It doesn't matter. You can look south; it'd still be the north, but they always turn around and look north when they look at plat map. But I always try to give a farmer, when I'm out in a field, a map of his home from the 1860s, and that goes a long ways. And then if I find, which you usually do if you're looking for an old homestead, you're going to find Indian heads. I always put an Indian head in a folder, one of those coin folders, put my name on there, the date I found it, and his name. And that goes a long ways in public relations for metal detecting people. So it's just something good to give back. If you don't give back, you're not going to go anywhere. And Mike has found that out, and Jeff has found that out. That's what you got to do.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. We've got a guy, Tennessee Jeff and I have a landowner that has actually helped us out on his land. We've located some spots and potential spots. That guy will bring his bush hog out. He'll bring a mower out, very accommodating. And so I made him up a Riker case, and I've got some of the finds that I found on his place. Actually, all of the good stuff that I found, I put in that Riker case, and I'm going to give it to him. And you're right.
We actually did that for a state park swim area. Well, it's a state park lake. And I'll tell you right now, it's Indian Lake, Ohio, and about 7 of us have hunted that lake for years. And I've taken over 1,000 rings out of that lake, I can tell you that for right now. But we also dug, you name it, and I actually dug a partial plate out of there, the swim area, and had a gold tooth in it. And we actually made a case for the park. And if you go down to the Indian Lake Museum at I forget what campground it is. They actually got that in the museum, and everybody donated something to it from our club.
Great.
The Black Swamp Metal Detecting Club.
That is great. And Mark Hoover said that he's seen your book, and it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, a lot of people said, well, and it just took me a long time to make it, and Mike's got the same thing, and I've learned a lot of things from Mike too, because I started looking in my maps more or closer, especially to the river areas, because early settlers, they wanted to be near the water. Hello.
Right.
Or a spring. I mean, if you look at the old maps, they even show the springs, they show the churches, the schools, where the houses were at. Our maps show trees, and orchards look like dots, and that's an apple orchard, and that's where a farm is usually at. And the nice thing about it, you can be looking at those maps and went, wait a minute, there's no road there, but there was a road back in the 1800s. So that's what you wanted. And then you start asking a farmer, if you done anything weird out in the middle of this field, I show a road out there and several homes, and we dig up flagstone all the time out there, and bones and all kinds of things. That's what I'm looking for, and bottles. Heck yeah.
And you bring up a good point, too, because all of our old sites are along the river, Cumberland River, in our area here. Sure. And one of the first things that I asked every landowner that I get a permission, I said, can you tell me where all the springs are on your place? And almost every one of those, there's a colonial site close to it somewhere. May not be right at the spring, but it's close.
You bring that up. One time I showed a farmer his property, and I said, well, here's a spring. And he said, that's a spring? I always wondered why that area was so wet. It is still wet. It's a spring. Yeah. I never knew that was a spring.
I'm on a landowner right now hunting, and I've got an old map of the place, and I've map Rika all the old house sites, and he'll drive by. I'm just hunting early in the morning now, but him or one of his workers will drive by, and he said, are you telling me there was a house right there? And I said, yeah, back in the day there was. How do you know? And I'll show him some Indians or something other that I found there, or flat buttons. I said, there was a house. He said, I want you to map all that out for me whenever you get done, and show me where all these places were. They just, they don't know. They hadn't been on that land. It wasn't in their family. And so it's something new.
If the people camp there, the Indians camp there. That's the one we want to think. I mean, you're out in that field and you're finding arrowheads, plus the stones and from the house. The Indians camped there long before white man camped there. Mm-hmm. So, a lot of relics.
And I'd say all three of us have done this. You're on one of those old sites. You're near the river. You're near a spring. You get a signal and you dig it, and inadvertently you dig an arrowhead. We've all done it, haven't we?
Yep. I did that the first time last year.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I dug out an arrowhead last year. It was a button. I can't remember if it was a flat button or an eagle button. I found both those that day. I remember that. I always fill my holes, whether it's in a field or not. I was putting the dirt back in the hole, and there lay a nice little arrowhead about 1.5 inches long.
Yep.
It happens, that's for sure.
Well, if it was a good site for the colonial period, it was, and whenever they moved in, I guess part of the problem with the Indians is that land was already cleared. It was already a site that they could take occupancy on, and then they took it in the turn of the century, and it's just come on. A good house site spot is a good house site spot.
I know you guys don't. Well, you probably do, maybe down in Kentucky. But if you go over east, if you follow Route 40, the old route, where Washington came through there, and he was a British officer then, and then later on, the Americans camped in the same campsites, and every river, especially down in Kentucky and Tennessee, had a picket post, right?
Right, yeah.
Every river, I don't care, it might have been all four corners of the darn thing. They had a picket post, and those picket posts were there during the Revolutionary War also. So it wasn't just, I mean, that was the only that's the only way across the river was that bridge. So they definitely had picket posts there, and a lot of guys don't understand that. Buddy, if I was down in Kentucky and Tennessee, I'd be around every river getting permission to hunt those places.
That's where we spend 95% of our time is along, and the Cumberland River is the major river that runs through right here. And we spend 95% of our time around the river. Sure do.
Have you ever been to Youngs Creek, Kentucky?
No, Where's that at?
It's near Cumberland Falls, and my wife's ancestors actually they got their logs from down at Youngs Creek, Kentucky, and they shipped them up here to Ohio by rail.
Huh.
But I talked to an old-timer there. That's a long story. Talked to an old-timer there, and his parchment was signed by, I think, Thomas Jefferson or George, I forget, as when they were surveyors. And but he actually, his dad went down to the Cumberland River, and they pulled logs up to the sawmill, which was right there on his property where I was talking to him at. And those logs came to Ohio. That cool?
It is. It is. There's no doubt about it. And there's a story told about my great-grandfather. He used to be in the logging business, and what they would do is they would tie all those logs together and put them in the Cumberland River, and they would ferry those logs on the river to the Mississippi and then all the way down to Louisiana. And the story is told that he rode a haul of logs down the Cumberland into the Mississippi, down to New Orleans, and then walked back. And they said when he got back, he passed my granddad and one of my older uncles in the field, and they said that this man came. He had a big, long beard, and said they didn't recognize him. He said, "Hello, fellas," and just walked on by. And said my uncle asked my granddad, said, Daddy said, "Who is that man?" He said, "I don't know. I've never seen that man." And he said, we stopped and watched and said he walked right into our house and said we throwed everything down and ran down there to the house real quick. And there he was sitting in a rocking chair just laughing. He'd been gone so long they didn't recognize him.
Oh, my gosh. That's a good story. Well, now I know I got to get off here because Mark says, "Mike, Denny took over the show." I better get off here. Yeah, I've had a lot after 36 years of hunting, and Mike's actually been hunting longer than I have. So
I've been at
pick up a lot of
34 years.
stories. What's that?
I've been doing it 34 years.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you pick up a lot of knowledge on the way. Too bad I didn't have all this knowledge when I was in school and didn't even like history.
That's what I say. If I had
been metal detecting back then, I'd have been a better student.
I would have too, no doubt.
Yeah.
Hey, we
all
appreciate.
Right, I got to really get off here. Mike, you take over. I just wanted to call in about the flat maps. I mean, they are a godsend to anybody at Metal Jacks, but you have to put in the time to go to the. I just went to libraries and museums. Is where I got all mine. And and really and of course I pick up whenever I do a lot of metal detecting talks, and the towns that I do or the counties that I do talks, I pick up their book. That's another thing. If you can find a book in these different counties, and they used to talk to the old timers where the old one-room schoolhouses are at. That's mainly what I hunt, and old churches are tore down. But you can find those. You're in money. You're in silver in large sense. So that all started from the United States government in 1776. There'll be a schoolhouse in every section of every county and every township in Section 16. There'll be a schoolhouse north, south, east, and west every 2 miles. That's in the United States government. That's the way it was stated.
You know what I see right here, Mike? I see a show with Denny Morrison. Denny, our next.
I got to get out of here.
Our next open date is July 19th, and I'm going to put you down for July 19th if you don't have a problem with that.
We'll see.
Okay. Mark Hoover is my booking agent, so you get with Mark and let him. I'm serious. Mark's booking a lot of shows for us. But, yeah, July 19th is our next open date. Would love to have you. And 2 great calls tonight.
Mike, get back on here. I got to get out of here.
All right.
Sorry, I
Good
took up
talking to you,
so much of your time. Yep. I'll be talking to you soon, buddy.
All righty.
Good night.
Great guy.
Right.
Great calls that he has. He's a wealth of information. And,
right.
You know, it's not that he took over the show. He's a good friend of yours.
Contributing.
Contributing to the show. One other thing that I did want to ask you, and I mentioned this to you whenever I was talking to you earlier, and we're in free baseball for sure now because it's just a little bit over an hour and a half right now. What is one thing that you think you should have found and you haven't yet?
Something my buddy Jeff Miller has found that I have not, and that's a 20-cent piece. Not many of them pop up. That is really my only bucket list coin. I also want to find some Indian trade silver. You know, the Indians were in my area pretty heavily.
Right.
It'd be neat to find some Indian trade silver, but a 20-cent piece is my bucket list coin. And I'm sure some point I'll probably find one, but who knows?
I don't know anybody that has found one of those personally. You know, any of the guys that I detect with, to my knowledge, has not found one.
Mm-hmm.
You're reaching for a pretty high bar right there, I fear.
Well, yeah, you know, and a gold coin wasn't even on my list. The reason why is because that just wasn't realistic to me. But a 20-cent piece was because, you know, they only made them for like 3 years or something like that. And you're only going to find one, and that's an 1875S. So it's just, you know, there's not many of them out there to begin with.
And I
think that's why they're so hard to find.
We didn't even talk about your gold coin. Talk about it for a minute before we close out here.
Oh yeah, last year I invited a buddy of mine down, and we went to a yard where there was a ghost town. There is a ghost town, and before we even really get started, he says, "Have you ever found a gold coin?" I said, "Nah, that's nothing that I really expect to find either." So we're hunting around in the yard. Got a couple Indian head pennies, and I go out into the area where the school sat at that site, where I had dug a half dime, an 1850 half dime, just a couple weeks before, and right behind where the hill was, where the school was, is a field. And I was just barely in the field, and I got a signal I thought was a shotgun shell. So I'm expecting to find a shotgun shell, and I dig it out, and I take a little clump of dirt off, and I saw a gold coin staring at me, and I could tell it's $2.50 gold piece just by the size of it. And I just I was speechless. I tried hollering for my buddy, and I really couldn't talk. He didn't hear me, and finally got his attention and waved him over, and he videoed it. And yeah, that was pretty neat that day to find that and have somebody to share that moment with me.
Yeah. A good friend of mine.
We left.
Go ahead.
We left there and happened to come across the street tear out, and we started hunting that, and I found a gold ring and about 10 Indian head pennies, and I think I found a silver dime or two that day, and he got some silver quarters. It was just a good day all around for us.
Good friend of ours out of Virginia, Matt Howell, his channel is called Gone Digging. I met him in the spring of this year at DIV. Great guy. And, you know, he was, we did a live show there in Culpeper, and he came on and was with us there. Butch Holcomb and Barb was on the show. But anyway, we talked quite a bit at that hunt and have stayed in touch since. and I got a notification that he had gone live on Facebook, and he had found a $5 gold coin, and he was shaking. He couldn't hardly talk. I mean, he was just turning circles in the field, and his good buddy Ross was doing all the videoing and everything. And I've never found one. I don't know that I'll ever find one, but that's what I love about this hobby. You get a signal, you mentally think, I think that this is what this is going to be, but you never know, do you?
Nope, you just never know. All right, like I said, I was expecting to find a big brown or greenish colored shotgun shell, and instead I see gold. It was 1853, so it dated right there to the time period the town was there. And then the other day I found my second 1877 Indian head penny. It was the first coin I found out in the field that day. And my eyes are just terrible. I need my glasses to see things. I thought I saw a 7, but I couldn't tell if it was a third digit or the fourth. Turns out it was both. But I just threw the thing in my pocket and kept on hunting. Found 2 or 3 other ones. And finally, I called it a day and came home. It was kind of hot. I got to cleaning that thing up. I was like, oh my gosh. I got goosebumps, and I just couldn't believe I found another one. I thought, wow, that's crazy.
And for those of you that don't know, that is the hardest Indian to find, isn't it?
Yeah, probably. 1909S is a pretty tough one, too, and I have not found one of those. But, yeah, 1877 is a tough one.
I don't have one of those. I do have a first year fatty, and I like it. Yeah. And I've got a flying eagle, so I like those. Hey, Mike. Right. Great to have you on tonight. Great show. Great participation. We had great calls and everything. Tell everybody how they can get in touch with you as far as your Facebook or YouTube or what have you.
Well, I'm not on YouTube. I just don't take the time to video. But Facebook, just Mike Speiser, just look me up on Facebook. We got a lot of mutual friends probably. But I sure appreciate you having me on the show, and it was good. I'm glad you had a good turnout. Yeah,
it's been my pleasure to be with you, and sorry that Jeff didn't make it back tonight. I know that he would love to talk with you, and I can't wait to meet you in person. Hopefully get to hunt with you in the future. I think we do a lot of the same kind of hunting. Yeah,
I would love to meet you at some point. That'd be pretty fun.
We're going to come up to...
I met Butch Holcomb last year. That was pretty neat.
Yeah, he's a big deal.
In fact, I turned him and Denny on to that street tear out. Butch goes down there and finds a seated dime and a gold class ring.
Oh, great! Yeah,
that was pretty neat.
Well, I appreciate you being on the show tonight, and Godspeed.
Thanks for having me.
And you've got an open invitation to come down here to Kentucky. We're going to come to CWPPO in the fall. Don't know when that is yet. Sam Waters hadn't released anything on the date or anything, but hoping to get up there unless we have some kind of conflict. So maybe in the future we'll get together and get to meet.
All right. That sounds great. Appreciate it.
Okay. I'll let you go then, and appreciate you being on the show. We appreciate everybody that joined us here tonight, and let me remind you that this next week we've got another Canadian guest. We've got Liz. You know her as Diggin' Canuck, and that's on June the 14th. That's this next Thursday night at 8 o'clock Eastern, and Tennessee Jeff will be back. And also want to remind you to hit the like button. We appreciate everybody, all of our supporters, all of our listeners, whether you're in the States or Canada or overseas or whatever country that you're listening from. I want to plug the other shows before I close as well. Check out Josh Kimmel and Beyond Sight and Sound. They're on Sunday and Wednesday nights at 8 o'clock Eastern. American Digger Relic Roundup is on Monday night at 9 o'clock Eastern. All Metal Mode is on Monday night at 8 o'clock Eastern. History Seekers is on Tuesday night at 9 o'clock Eastern, and then Hardcore Metal Detecting is on Thursday night and Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. And obviously, Relics Radio is on every Thursday night at 8 o'clock Eastern. And we will see you next Thursday. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on Relics Radio. We really do appreciate it. Be sure and join us live each Thursday night at 7 o'clock Central Time, 8 o'clock Eastern here on Spreaker. Or you can catch the archive show at Relics Radio on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, or iTunes. Please take a minute and hit the like button and be sure and follow us so that you'll get notifications of all of our upcoming broadcasts. You can also find us on YouTube at Digging with Seven or Tennessee Jeff, or you can check us out on our Relics Radio Facebook page. If you'd like to get in touch with us, then send an email to diggingwith7@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. We hope you'll join us next Thursday night, and until then, get out there and dig some history.